Big one. It's Bleav in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal. Had a chance to catch up with Lowe up in Santa Clara for the final preseason game of the slate. Their fourth and final, the third one for the 49ers. Great to see you, Lowe. Made my day. It was awesome to see you down on the field, especially because you were sporting a Somerset.
Yeah, you were giving me a hard time about my summer suit. Money, you were looking pretty as usual, slim in the waist, pretty in the face. The crowd loves you. People yelling, the thousands of fans yelling,
Oh, yeah.
money, money, money.
Yeah.
It was great catching up with you and just
That's
seeing
what it
you,
was.
man, and just being around all the great guys that you know from the Chargers and catching up with you guys was awesome.
Yeah, the people that were yelling low, there was one dude that was relentless, and there were four of us having a chat. I was in the middle with Lowe, and then to my left was John Spanos, and then to my right was Nick Hardwick, and this guy was just like, Lowe, Lowe. And finally, Lowe just looked at him and barked. He goes, "Hey, man, that's the owner of the Chargers right there, all right? That's the owner of the Chargers right there, all right?" I thought he was going to leave the stadium, Lowe. I thought he was going to leave the stadium. He was like, "Oh, no."
But he was over the top. I mean, you have to admit, money was over the top. I was coming out there, man, just hold on. And it is barking. I was like, dude, chill. I mean, I know the guy. I seen him. He already texted me, and I was like, bro, you can't do that. I was like, well, I know hardball, and I know it. I said, okay. You know those top rope guys? We call them top rope. Anything you did, they did better. They're top ropers. So he's my top rope guy. Top rope.
Yeah.
It
was great. Now, look, I'll say before we get, because there's some stuff I do want to get into about our hanging out, because it was great. But it's the day after. We're recording this less than 24 hours from the Chargers announcing their 53-man roster, and I think it's important to acknowledge, like, I thought Marlowe Wax was going to make the roster before the game, but then he goes out and has that game and really solidifies his spot on the 53. And look, was it in part because Junior Colson went on the season-long IR, which is a huge hit for him? I mean, a third-round pick that they thought was going to be, the running mate for Deion Henley, and you got your off-ball linebacker set for the next decade. And now, after missing most of last season, he's going to miss all of this season. If you want a consolation prize, to me, Marlowe Wax was the one guy that I said, you can't not put him on. He will get claimed. That guy is no question in my mind, just how he sees it. The production in college was, for whatever reason, he didn't test well, or why a guy that had that sort of, and let me just pull it up real quick so the people know. I think I might have said it before, but a guy who in college posts 338 tackles, 21 sacks, 44 tackles for loss, 10 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. And then we saw it. We saw it in the preseason. Like, that guy just had to make the team. And I was very excited because a lot of times your draft status follows you around for your career, an undrafted free agent in Wax, but I'm happy that he made it.
It's interesting. You and I are texting during the game. I said, he ain't going nowhere.
Yes, he did.
I was like, because I know we talked about it the week before about, hey, here's a bubble guy. Here's a guy we don't know. And watching him play, kind of reminded me of 45 for the Niners, Matt Martin, who makes a lot of tackles around the ball. I just think Max Eden's under control more. Martin, he's a ball seeker. These linebackers, they kind of similarity in just the way they're heat-seeking missiles and the way they're around the football. So I love his football IQ. I love his football, just ability to make plays for you. This guy's going to be a hammer, and he's going to be at the Chargers for a while.
Yeah, we were talking about it on the broadcast, and, as we were sort of getting through, like, okay, so why did this guy not get drafted? You've got the production. Clearly he sees it immediately. And then you kind of look and you're like, okay, well, he's 6'1", 230. It's like, is he a little light for an off-ball linebacker? Is that? And then we started, as we're talking through it, it's like, man, Dan Henley was never going to be a safety. He was always going to be a linebacker, and he came in at 221. And so I think the Chargers sort of had that unique sort of position of, oh, we already got one of these guys, and we know how effective, if you've got that athleticism and you can still bring the thump. And, man, you saw it on that sack when he just bull rushed over that guard and knocked the quarterback down and created that strip sack fumble that Caleb Murphy corralled. So I think there's circumstance is so important in football. And I think in the case of the Chargers, to already have Deion Henley, it's like, oh, we know what we can do with this guy.
Yeah, and he plays with such great leverage. And when you watch the guy play with leverage, he strikes guys. Like you just alluded to, when that strip fumble, he gets underneath the guard and just be able to lift him up and jack him up. Plays very low because he's already low, doesn't have to drop that hard, can get under people. And he's an earth mover. The guy can make plays. He runs, he hits. You want a guy like that on your team. And congratulations. Here's a guy, wasn't high thought after, but here's a guy that showed, hey, look, here's what they say, but let me show you I can go out and prove that I can make the team. That's one thing about the NFL. I came in the NFL 4th round. People say, hey, this guy's getting cut. Jim Moore said, I wanted the playoffs. I wanted to cut the guy when I see him play because I didn't play fast like everyone else. I ran a 4.6.
Right.
I was strong but explosive. So they didn't really get to see that in practice into a game. And then you say, in the game, you turn the game on, and it's like lights, camera, action of 4.6 football, but you running over guys and running through guys and hitting guys and taking their head off. It's like you can't teach that. And that's how this guy plays. You can't teach what he has. He's a football player.
Yeah. And I think, that's and the other thing about Marlowe is, for people that are thinking maybe, is this the 53rd guy when they sign a long snapper? Because unfortunately, it's a big hit. Josh Harris he might be the best long snapper in the league. They're going to miss him for at least the first 4 games. So when they sign their long snapper, one of these guys is going to move to the practice squad and be exposed. It's not Marlowe Wax. This is a guy that's going to play on Sunday. He is not an injury insurance policy for Troy Dye or Denzel Perriman or Dan Hanley. This is a guy who is going to play. And he's, I think you saw Nick Neiman, who signed a $6 million deal in Houston. He gets cut. He doesn't even, they paid him $1.5 million to do nothing, to show up for training camp. And he, of course, has been the best special teams player on the Chargers. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, here you go, bring Nick Neiman back. And then you saw the Chargers get rid of Delshon Phillips. That's the guy that, they handed over $1 million to in free agency to replace Nick Neiman. And I think a big part of that is how good Caleb Murphy, an off-ball line, your on-ball, your edge, your outside linebacker, if you want to put it that way. But I don't know, whatever the hell the names are these days. He's an edge, he's a DN, but the way he's played and the way Marlowe Wax has played, I think you're talking about, well, we'd probably rather have Marlowe out there in the linebacking rotation than Nick, and we think he can accomplish that. I think that was also one of the other themes of this, Low. I thought Ryan Ficken really had a lot of say in this roster. I think, the special teams coordinator was able to really kind of put his fist down a little bit and say, hey, look, man, you've kind of been asking me to do a lot of this with duct tape and glue, and these are the guys I need. I don't think Ja Taylor is going to be in the corner mix, but he's their best gunner. And he's an exceptional gunner. He's like in the conference. Like if there was a Pro Bowl position exclusively for gunner, he's in that conversation. And I think Ryan Ficken was able to get him on the team. I think Caleb Murphy had a lot to do with that. Marlowe Wax had a lot to do with that. And those 2 corners, we can get into that. Eric Rogers and Nico Reed, both undrafted free agents. We saw Nico, I think he made 5 special teams tackles in the preseason. And so I think a lot of that, when you're looking at this 53, and it's something that well, Lo, because you did special teams, exceptionally for so long, how important it was. And I do think Ryan Ficken's fingerprints are all over this initial 53.
Oh, without a doubt, Brian's fingerprints all over this, because guys, coaches, and staff, they go to these meetings and say, okay, who's our starters? Okay, who's our backups? Which one of our backups can give you plays in the game if someone gets hurt, but they can play special teams at a high level. You remember Carlos Pope and what he was. Here's Kasim Osgood. These guys, they could go in and play in a game, come out, go block, make a play for you on defense. But the special teams was their glue. That was their heart. But you got to have guys that can also be serviceable. If something happens, you need a guy that just can't play special teams, but can go in and play a series, go in and play a game or two, and it's not that much productivity. It falls off. So they wanted to. I think the Chargers went in with that type of mode, saying, okay, we need these guys to play special teams, and we're going to emphasize and we're going to preach special teams to make these guys understand that's the main reason you made this team. But also, we're going to get some talented guys that can also help us win some ball games if they have to play, on first and second down as well.
Yeah, it's a real interesting 53. Just because and the other that's right. That was the other person I was thinking of. One of our absolute favorites, truly one of my favorite players I've ever been around, Tony Jefferson. He's just the best, man. He's such a great dude. But I think you look at that position and it's like, and Kendall Williamson earned his spot, man. He earned that spot. I don't think there's any question he would have been snatched up to the safety out of Stanford, because what do you need at the safety position? Low, you need him to be smart. if you're playing safety, you got to be a smart player. And Tony
Right.
Jefferson was, and Kendall Williamson absolutely is in spades. He sees it. He gets it. He was making plays all over the place. The one thing he offered that Tony didn't, special teams. He's one of the best special teams players all preseason long. And I think that's probably one where they went to Ficken and said, hey, we'd like to keep Unk. You know, he's really good for the room. Where are you at with this? And I think he probably said, you know, Williamson's going to be core 4 for me. That guy is a core 4 dude, and he is, you know, if you add him to the roster, that's where he's going to fit in. And so I think, unfortunately for Tony, that was the spot. And I would assume it was a lengthy debate because I thought Tony had a great preseason. I think he's great for the room. The guys love him. And ultimately, I think special teams, you know, won the day again.
Yeah, and it was tough because looking at the roster yesterday, I was like, where's TJ? And you know, I was kind of shocked. I mean, but you're absolutely right. Special teams, I always say it, money, and it's something I'll die on is offense counts as a third, defense counts as a third, and special teams counts as a third. You look at the Niners special teams, you look at their kicker, you look at, and look compared to Decker, look at the 2 different kickers, look at the consistency. You have Niners and everyone's, okay, but you're going to win a game. You're up 13-7. And you've already missed 2 field goals. You can't breathe. It's a situation where people think, oh, well, it's just one kick here, one kick. It is in a tough game. It is paramount that your guys have the mental fortitude to go out there and be able to make kicks and do the things they need to do. So interesting just to see, especially with the long snapper. I know Fisk does a little bit of that too, but you got to make sure that you have that down because you want your kicker, as good as he is a offensive weapon. He wins you football games. You want to make sure you get the right long snapper for him because you want to continue that success, especially for the Chargers.
Yeah, and it'll be, look, one of these players, I don't know who it is. Well, first of all, they're looking for another O-lineman. I was very surprised that they waived Branson Taylor, a 6th-round pick. But it was clear that he was overmatched, that he's more of a developmental practice squad guy. Hopefully they can sign him to the practice squad, keep developing him, but it was clear. And so I think that shows a front office that is secure in their standing, that is comfortable. It's like, yeah, we used a 6th-round pick on him. Not all 6th-round picks pan out. Wasn't panning out. I don't want to just kind of use a roster spot for him so I can pretend like all my, they waived a 7th-round pick, Trequez Bridges. They waived their 6th-round pick. They waived last year's 6th-round pick and Kamani Vidal. Like, it's a front office that's like, I'm okay. We're going to put Eric Rodgers and Nico Reed and Marlowe Wax and Kendall Williamson and guys we didn't draft because they're the better players. Competitors welcome. And I think it's something that Coach preaches, and it's something that the front office backed him up on, that if you compete and you win, and it's not just the 4 preseason games, it's training camp. You could see it in all the training camp practices that Nico Reed belonged on this team, that Eric Rod and what I'm getting at, though, Lo, is they're going to add a 9th O-lineman. So that's going to remove someone from this roster. They're going to add a long snapper. They're not going to use Tucker Fisk, even though that was pretty incredible to watch in that San Francisco game, how well he was snapping that ball in an emergency situation. So that's 2 of these spots that are going to go away. And I think what I see when you've got 12, defensive backs is they're trying to sneak those guys through. They're trying to get through the initial 53, let everybody go through their waiver claims and grab some guys that they have their eye on. And then, they're going to probably put Eric Rodgers or maybe Nico Reed or one of these, or Kendall Williamson. One of these guys is going to find his way to the practice squad, or 2 of them. And the hope is that by doing it this way initially, these are the guys they think would have got claimed, and they don't want to get claimed. But when they bring in that 9th O-lineman and that long snapper, if they can get through that initial wave, maybe they can sneak Eric Rodgers with those 2 interceptions against the Saints and Nico Reed, who's flashed in every game. But that's because it's a game. You know it, Lo. It's a game.
Yeah, it is. That's the thought process they're having. And you have to have that thought process going into the season because you want to get guys through, or teams say, okay, cool. If you just release them, guys are going to grab them. It's going to be tough when you see the way that these guys playing, 2 interceptions. They think the Saints don't remember that. In teams that usually you play against, they remember what you've done. So I think the Chargers, they had a tough situation, and it's around the league. It's like 53. That's usually not enough, and that's why it keeps going up every now and then, just to give you some flexibility, because there's a lot of guys out there on the streets that belong in this league, that can play, that can be
Yeah.
Pro Bowl types of players, and it's unfortunate a lot of them will never get the opportunity. So it's just interesting that you got to make the best of it, and a lot of these guys did, and that's why they're on this squad. And we know Tony Jefferson is going to land on his feet, but this is a guy like you and I both talked about. We wanted to make
He's
this
gonna get
team, and
signed.
everyone loved him. Oh yeah, definitely.
Team's going to sign him. He played well last year. He played great in the preseason. And that's the other thing, like I did my initial 53 because I know the people like, chasing after that on Twitter, and it was a mess compared to what, like I didn't think Najee Harris was going to be on the team. I had assumed he was going to the NFI for the first 4 games, just kind of based on what we had heard about
Right.
where the fact that I haven't seen him practice since July 4th when the injury happened. So that's great news. I'm happy for him. He's as likable a person as you'll ever get around, pulling for him. So I was very excited to see that. So I had Nyheim Hines in there. And so, a lot of people were not happy with that, which I understand. He had 2 muff punts and a fumble in that game. I was like, but got to remember, this guy's been out of football for 2 years. You could see the explosion was there. You could see the speed was there. You could see the pass pro was still exceptional. And I said, he's just got to get used to the physicality again, man. And he'll get used to that. And I said, the other thing is I figured Kamani Vidal and Rocket Sanders, they're going to make it through. Running backs, teams are going to claim O linemen, D linemen, and corners. That's what they're going to go get. They're not coming to get wide receivers. They're not coming to get running backs. It's just kind of not the way the initial waiver process works. So that's why I figured if you keep Hines, then he doesn't immediately become a free agent. Guys like Tony Jefferson, like Nyheim Hines, they're immediately free agents. They can sign right away. They do not have to wait for the waiver process to get through. And teams are like, where do I put my claim in? Do I put my claim in here? But, they're ready to sign wherever they want. So that's sort of what my idea was there. But that, I think, was the other big surprise, Lo, is that Najee did not go on the NFI to miss the first 4 weeks. And hopefully he's ready to go against Kansas City because God knows they'll need him.
Yeah, what are they saying? So is he going to be practice this week or next week? You don't still haven't. He hasn't been at practice one day. Of course, he has a little visor on and stuff. I heard, but
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see where he is at, because you do need him. Playing against Kansas City Chiefs, defending AFC Championship team. You got to have everybody on deck. So it's interesting. I did too. I thought that they would put him on the PUP and keep him there for 4 to 5 weeks at least, and then come back and keep another guy on the active roster. But interesting that they didn't.
Yeah, I think, and I bring it up because look, if he isn't ready to go, then they're going to have to call somebody up.
Right.
They're not going into the Chiefs game with 2 running backs.
Exactly.
So once you do that, now you're sending someone back to the practice squad, and again, you're exposing that player to other teams to go get. So I do think there's also a calculus in there where it's like, you know what? Let's put Najee on. We think he's going to be ready within the first 4 weeks. He might not be ready week 1 or week 2, but at least at that point, other teams are kind of settled. They're already in the season. And at that point, we can send, Williamson or Reed or Rogers or one of those guys, to the practice squad, a Boygby, whoever it may be, that's kind of that 6th in line and whatever their position group rotation is, Tucker Fisk, we can send them to the and they won't get claimed because we're already in the season, and it's kind of easier to do that. So that's for people that are like, oh, Najee's ready to go. I don't know if that's the case. I have not seen him practice. I've seen him walk around the field. He just started doing some individual drills last week, midweek. So I hope he's ready to go. I hope those are the 3. If those are your 3 backs, that's a good running back room. Najee, Omarion, and Hassan Haskins.
It's going to be interesting, though, because Najee hasn't been carrying the ball. He hasn't had the contact. So you're asking this guy to go out here with no contact. In practice now, it's scaled way back because the season you usually get some of your touches and get hit and get, tough doing training camp. But now practice is just a thud. So it's going to be interesting. Are they going to say, hey, look, we need you guys to thud this guy to let him get used to it, pull on the ball? You're going to have to, you got 2 weeks. I understand you got this week and next week before the game, but it's a short week, and next week's a different type of travel week, so it's interesting just to see what they're going to do with Najee, because you do have to run the ball against Kansas City, and Kansas City has a good front four, and
Yeah.
they can get after you. So you're going to be in a lot of 12, I think, because of the fact you don't have both your starting tackles. So you're going to use Fisk and, going to be a
Yeah.
Disley. They're going to be asked to do a lot. So I think that even though you're talking about a Fisk that may go to a practice squad, here's a guy that's big. His dad. He's physical. Fisk is a physical, big man that can move people. So I don't know if this is going to be a practice squad guy during the year because of the fact the tackle situation.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Lo. And it's when I had him on the initial 53, and that was one of the big pushbacks I got on Twitter was, why would you put Fisk on this roster? And it's like, just, are you not watching? Are you not watching practice? Are you not watching games? Like, if Will Disley, God forbid, gets hurt, they don't have another tight end that blocks on this team. So, and they're running Disley and Fisk out there a lot. They're running Fisk as a fullback. How fun was it to see the two guys in the 3-point stance in the backfield, Low? I don't know. We were trying to figure out if Harbaugh was like, paying homage to those early 49er teams with Rathman and Craig. And we're like, what is he doing with these two dudes split in the backfield in the 3-point stance? It was hilarious. But like, Fisk can block his tail off, man. He can flat out block his tail off. So I think it's important to recognize, okay, you have this fantasy football mindset and you're drafting running backs and you're drafting wide receivers and quarterbacks, and just look at how they play football. Like, look at what they're doing out there. They're running 13. They're running 22.
Yeah.
They're not running 11.
No.
That is not what this team did all preseason long. So, those 4 tight ends, that's important to them. But I also acknowledge that that's a guy that probably, can get sent to the practice squad and would be fine for a week or two if there's a certain matchup and you think you're going to play a lot more 11. And you want to call up an extra defensive tackle, an extra, defensive back or something like that. I think that's okay that he can go down and up. But initially, I think with what he put on tape, the way he played in the preseason, they don't make him like Tucker Fisk. There's not a lot of guys like that. And if a team is looking for a blocking tight end, they were going to come get him.
No, without a doubt they will. I got the Ravens on the phone. I got the Cincinnati Bengals on the phone. There are some teams out there. Cleveland wants to be more physical. Fisk can fit a lot of roles like you talk about. He can play 12. He can go and play 22. He can block in the backfield. The guy he gets after you too. He's got all day. You better bring your lunch pail. You know what he is going to bring to the table. It's interesting because we'll get into it next week when we talk a little bit more of Kansas City, but you're talking about a team that we know are going to go 4 wides. They're going to play with 2 tight ends. You're going to have to, cover some great tight ends, and, you're playing that game. So you had to make sure you're going to be good on the back end and the guys up front. So I do understand why you keep so many DBs and safeties, because the division you're in, especially when you're starting off with Kansas City, you're going to be tested in this pass game very, very much.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the opposite is true as well. I never had a doubt that they were going to carry 6 defensive linemen and 5 edge players. I mean, both of those position groups, it wasn't hard. I was about to say I nailed them, but like everybody did, because you could see it. It's just like, yeah, we know what Jesse Minter wants. And it was clear that all 6 of those guys had flashed, and they told us that too. They said, look, we're not going to be able to replace Poona Ford with one player, but we're going to replace him with Naquan Jones, Deshaun Hand, drafting Jamari Caldwell, developing Justin Aboigbe, re-signing Tier Tart, expecting a big year going into free agency out of Tito Abonia, and they did that. And I think every single one of those players earned their spot. And so that, again, I feel good about it because it's exactly what they preach. And Lo, you can speak to it better than I can, how important that is for a player to hear the coach say, competitors welcome, you're Naquan Jones, you're signed for a $750,000 guarantee.
Right.
And it's like, okay, if he's not, he's a vet. If he's not ready to go, it's a 1-year deal.
Right.
We don't want to get rid of Aboigbe. He's in his 2nd year. Jamari Caldwell's flashed. He's looked fantastic in his rookie year.
Yes.
But Naquan played great. And it's an opportunity for all of those players to say, hey, Naquan made this team because he had a good preseason and a good training camp, and they're going to carry 6 interior defensive linemen.
No question, Money. And you talk about the other guys, and those are the guys you're talking about, the other guys that have to make plays in order for a guy that we know, the ageless wonder, to flourish, to continue to play at a high level. That's 5 dudes. Khalil Mack. What type of pitch count do you see him on? What do you see this guy have in the tank? What do you think this organization, how do they build around a guy? We know what he can do. When he gets after it and he turns it up, you need a play, the guy's there.
Yeah, look, is he Khalil Mack from 5 years ago? No. That's
No.
In the conversation as the best defensive end in the league. But he's still darn effective. I mean, he's still going to set the edge, and he's going to wreck you, and he's still going to get after the quarterback. I think for me, that room and what I was excited about with the addition of Caleb Murphy, and so happy to see him flash, because Kyle Kennard didn't. Kyle Kennard looks like it's going to take a minute to develop him, similarly to the 4th-round pick from last year in a Boygby, where I don't think we're going to see a lot of Kyle Kennard on game day. I think he's probably like a Boygby, where he's going to be inactive for a lot of these. And so getting Caleb Murphy to not only be that 4th defensive and, to be that 4th edge player behind Bud Dupree, Thule, and Khalil are going to be your starters. But what Caleb Murphy also does is he gives Ryan Ficken that core 4 defensive end, that core 4 edge player. So now Thule is great, because Thule's a great special teams player. They're like, Thule, go. Focus on being edge. You are not playing your couple hundred special team snaps, in this season. You're done with that. Let's get you focusing on DN, keep you fresh as an edge player, and that way Caleb Murphy's able to fill that role. And that goes a long way, because that's then it's a force multiplier, because now Thule can stay on the field more. Khalil can get a little more rest. You can run Thule with Bud, and now Khalil's going to be more effective. Thule can get his rest, and you feel good about Caleb Murphy coming out there and being that 4th edge player with Bud, or as that rotation goes. So I think when you talk about Khalil Mack, we're talking about the whole room, right? Because how much, and that goes for the interior defensive lineman room as well, because of how much Mike Elston and Jesse Minter rotate these guys. I mean, they rotate the hell out of these dudes, and just they want fresh legs, man. And if you're going to make this team, you're going to play. And so I think it's probably the defensive line group is probably the group that I'm the most excited about, because I didn't see one of those guys look like a liability low. Every single one of those guys looked like, even Justin Aboigbe started to come on toward the back end of the preseason. Jamari Caldwell looks like freaking Puna Ford.
He does. I love the way the big fella play. He pushed the pile, he moves, got a little wiggle for a big guy. And he's a big man carrying around 300 pounds, and watching him play in interior. I think that you have to make sure you win these games in the trenches. If you can't, everyone talks about, of course, the other positions, the receivers, the running backs, all the flashy stuff, but football is still the same. It's only one ball and one person can get it at one time. It's defense, see ball, get ball, but you win football games. Championships are won and lost in the trenches. You go back, I know it's a recap, but go back to watching the last Super Bowl. Philadelphia whipped Kansas City up front in the trenches. They kicked their butt. Mahomes looked like a baby back there. He had no time running for his life. They lost that game in the trenches. The Chargers, that's what's going to be interesting to see. How's this offensive line going to fare without having the top 3 tackles in the league? You still have a great tackle in Ott, Joe. But now it's to say, okay, how is these other guys, how are they going to disguise that? How does 12, how does 22, how is this running game is going to build? Because you need to play well in the trenches the first week against the Kansas City Chiefs, who their last performance, they got humiliated. And so did the Chargers. But the last time out, these Kansas City Chiefs, you know who they are. You know who they're led by. You know the players. You need to go out here and make a statement. You always talk about it, Money. Beginning of the year, we talked, you said, this team can start off 2-0, 3-0, or it can easily be 0-3.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 divisional games. I'm looking at our friends at FanDuel and all the stuff they got. So right now they got the Chargers as the dog. They're a field goal dog. So they're getting 3 points. They got the over-under at 45. into half. That number sounds about right to me. You talked about it, how good the Chiefs are up front with Karlaftis and Chris Jones and Derek Nottie. We know they're really good at the linebacker level. Leo Chenal and Nick Bolden. Obviously, we know Drew Tranquil. They're good on the back end, with Trent McDuffie, one of the best corners in the league. They took Christian Fulton from us. He's playing opposite at the other corner spot. So that's good defense. We just detailed what the Chargers have on defense and Jesse Minter. So, first game of the season, hopefully that field's in good shape, compared to what it was last year, and they got that all fixed up. That number is right on it, man. I feel like that number is right on top of it. This is a pretty good one here that they got going to score 2+ touchdowns. The favorites for the Chargers are Hampton and McConkey. Hampton at +650, McConkey at +1100. For the Chiefs, it's Worthy, Marquise Brown, and Kelsey. Obviously, they don't expect them to be running it a lot. And, man, that's if I were to try to pluck one of those off of there, I think I'd take Amari and Hampton. I think that's, to me, when you're keeping 4 tight ends, when your 3 running backs are 220, 230, and 245, when the one trade you make is for a swing tackle, and Austin Deculus from Houston, when they're going to go out there and find a guard, whether that's in a trade or if it's, in one of these waiver claims, like, to me, it just screams that we're going to play physical football, man. That's what we're going to go out here and do.
They are. Give me some jet sweep. Let me get emotion across. Let me get in 12 or go ahead and go, 3 receivers and say, okay, let's empty out the box. Now let's get a little misdirection. Think you're going that way. Let Amari go opposite way. Try to get him out there one-on-one to beat someone. But he's a good runner. The guy is very fast. He's got a great one cut and get north and south. I just think that you give him some illusion, pull some guys out there. But it's going to be an unbelievable physical type of game. And the Chargers can line up in 12 and still beat you up. So I just want to see, is the offensive line ready to go? Because we know you got the backs. You have some firepower. Can these guys up front do their job? Make sure if you double Chris Jones, make sure he doesn't get to the tackle. Just make sure you do your job. So it's going to be a great matchup. I had a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're talking about defense, 2 coaches, Spags, and think about our decor. Who gives you and Minter? Who do you give the edge to? Which at this coaching, not players yet, but just the coach. How do you see those 2?
I mean, look, I think it's crazy to pick up against Spags. I mean, he's helped carry this team. Offensively, they have not been great the last 3 years, and yet you're taking them to back-to-back Super Bowls. At the same time, I think Jesse Minter has proven with the players he has.
Yes.
Spags is doing it again with Chris Jones and Karlaftis, a first-round pick, and Nick Bolton, a second-round pick, and Leo Chenal, who's one of the great off-ball linebackers in this league, and, Trent McDuffie, one of the great corners. Jesse Minter came in, had no money, went out and plucked Christian Fulton on a 1-year deal. 2 fifth-round picks in Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still. Now, granted, he's got Khalil Mack, he's got Derwin James, he had Joey Bosa for a minute, but Poona Ford on a 1-year minimum deal, Tier Tart, who was cut by the Dolphins, like that's what he was doing it with. And so, to me, I do think it's a little bit closer than what a lot of people would think. And I think outside, really outside of that Tampa game, you're talking about a guy that pretty much, had these Chargers in every single contest, despite, a lot of the challenges that they had with no running game at times, with one receiver that the defense was willing to, to honor and view as a threat. And that was only for half the season. And yet you get out of it with the number 1 scoring defense in the league. I think Jesse certainly has earned the right to say, yeah, I think it's, I think it's a good fight. I think it's a fair fight.
Right. So do I. So do I. I think both those guys, they bring in a unique ability. They get guys to play for them. Guys love playing for both these D coordinators. You watch KC, those guys love playing for their Ds. They love playing. You watch the Chargers, they love playing for Minter. So you have guys that can empower guys. When you talk about the athletic ability as far as on the defense, though, I think you do have to give Kansas City a slight edge as far as just talent. I mean, it's not me being biased, just me being, hey, this is the Chiefs who they have. So you would give the edge there. I think the biggest thing that I Bleav that is kind of the equalizer. It's time for this offense to get going. For me, I got to see this offense, in which we know what Herbert can do, but we got to see consistency, running the ball, throwing the ball, and guys holding up. That's going to be huge in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, I think if you look at the Chiefs defense and the Chargers defense, I think it's closer than maybe at least for. I mean, some people can call that bias, but and I'm wearing those powder blue glasses, but you know, Derwin James is the best. I think he's the best safety in the league, and now he's playing big nickel, and he's all over the field. What do you need? You need him to erase Travis Kelce. Here we go. Wherever he goes is where I'm going to go, and that guy's not going to beat you. You have that opportunity. And I know Kelce's probably in his final year. He's 35 years old. He's not the same guy he once was, but at the same guy, that's a big benefit to have. To just come in with that queen on the chessboard and be able to place him wherever you want and try to erase whatever you want. I think Dan Henley is going to have a Pro Bowl, potentially all-pro level season. He's ready to take that next step. And so if you tell me it's Nick Bolton, Chenal, or Drew Tranquill, I'll probably still – Bolton's a hell of a player, man. But I got Henley right there with him. I think Henley is in the conversation with any guy in this league. So I expect him to take that jump. Like I said, I love what they're doing with the interior of that line. And so to me, that's what we're looking at in this game, right? They got a rookie left tackle that they're very excited about, and they should be in Josh Simmons. If he doesn't have that patella injury, he's not going 31st overall. He could be the first tackle taken off the board. He's that good. So, but here's Khalil Mack. Here's Jesse Minter. And here's, let's see how it goes in your first ever start. Their other tackle, I've got very little. Jawan Taylor's a walking false start. We know what he's been doing. And so you've got that right side, though, in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and that's as good of a center guard combo as you've got in the league. We know how hard of a nut that is to crack. They are exceptional. The other guard, Kingsley Suamataia, they drafted this tackle. Look out, the Chiefs stole one again. No, that guy, they ended up kicking their guard out to play tackle instead of putting that guy in there. So that left side, you can get after. Let's see how good this rookie is in his first start. Now, look, in Rashawn Slater's first start, he had to go up against were we in Washington week one? I think we were. Was that week one that he had to go up against Chase Young and stoned him, or was it Max Crosby? I can't remember who his first start was.
Either one of that's a tough out.
Yeah. And what did he do? He stoned him. And they ended up moving Chase Young to the other side because you couldn't get anything against Slater. So it's possible that Simmons could be as good as advertised. But that, to me, is where this battle is going to be. How does the offensive line function for the Chargers, without Rashawn Slater? Is Mekhi Becton going to be healthy? Because it's the same for them. It's Karlaftis, it's Jones, and they're a load. They are a load to deal with. So
when you watch Alt play, when your tackle, what he brought to the table. Knowing that, hey, when you walked off the bus, who was leading, and everyone else followed and said, okay, we got our guy. Who's that offensive line now? Is it Joe Alt? Who's the guy? So Alt's that guy now that when they walk off the bus, okay.
Yeah. You see him and you're like, oh crap. That's, and he's that's the one thing they have, that you lose Slater, it's a huge hit. Yeah. Nobody's got Joe Alt. Nobody has got the ability to say, that's all right, we'll just drop this guy right here. He's going to have a Pro Bowl, if not all pro season. I firmly Bleav that. He and Zion Johnson are going to wreck some shop now in the run game. They're going to pick up where Slater left off. I firmly Bleav that. He's so good. And so when you have that ability to have those two, for all the incoming that Zion takes, and I think, some of it is warranted in the pass protection, he's a hell of a run blocker. He's a strong dude, and he is going to push dudes off blocks. So that's going to be fine. It's the right side. We were so excited about that right side with Becton and Alt in the run game, knowing that Slater and Zion were on the other side, and so, yeah, that's something you're going to have to look out for. But Lo, it's exciting.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be great. I do want to finish with this, though. So I'm on the field in San Francisco. talking to Nick Hardwick, who's one of my favorite people ever, just as good a dude as you'll find, assistant offensive line coach for the Chargers. And Lowe rolls up, and of course, you and Nick, former teammates.
Love that guy.
And, you get excited and you start chatting, and I'm in the middle of it, and I'm looking at Lowe, I'm looking at Nick, and, my love and my passion for college football and college sports. And for people that don't know, Nick was a state champion in Indiana. He was a state champion wrestler, and he was an all Big Ten wrestler at Purdue. Where does Purdue play? Purdue plays in the same conference as Iowa and Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's the wrestling conference of record. And yet Nick was able to be an all Big Ten wrestler and walked on, by the way, walked on to, I think he had a study hall or something with Drew when Drew was a quarterback at Purdue. And he was like, hey, man, I think we could use you. And it's something along those lines. And so Nick went out as a walk-on and, of course, became an all Big Ten offensive lineman at Purdue. Lowe here was California State Athlete of the Year. 42-0. Is that your junior year? You were 42-0 or your senior year, Lowe?
Senior
year, 42-0. Do you still hold the record for the fastest pin in California State history?
I think it's still somewhere in there, somewhere in the top, somewhere in there, money, somewhere in there. I think it's in there.
What was it? How long did it take you to pin that guy?
I think it was like 6 or 8 seconds, between
6 or 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So and Lowe's an All-American at Fresno. Lowe makes a run in the NCAA championships. I think you finish 7th. You end up getting.
Yes.
So I'm looking at each of them and I'm like, man, Lowe's still all rocked up, man. Nick is like a walking, Greek statue carved in marble. And I'm like,
you're Don King. You're Don King. Don't forget, everyone knows this is Don. This is the white Don King right here. This
only in America.
Money's over there. Show me the money. Sizing up.
Nick, swinging the American flags.
It was so epic how you just like, hey Nick, man, you still look good. Hey Lowe, you still good, man. Look at Lowe's cash. You're sizing us both. Right. I was like, this is epic. You just kept walking. Then you get, hey Nick, man, Lowe's pretty tough. And you just kept baiting, you goose me a little bit. And neither one of us, both you and Nick and I, we both think, okay, shoot, we still think we're 20 years old. Let's go, baby. Before you know it, money's out there getting ready to drop the scarf, blow the whistle, and say, take your corners. So
got my hand out there, and I'm like, but here's my favorite part of it, Lowe, is both of you were humble, and as is the case with guys that can wreck shop. It's the guys that can't that start chirping. You know what I mean? The dudes that got it, they're going to be very humble and respectful because they know they're going to just toss you if you get out of line. But you're like, I don't know. I mean, you're like, Nick looks really good, man.
Yeah, of course.
And then Nick's like, Lowe, you still got that strong base now. You might get me with a little bit of leverage. And then all of a sudden, the peacocks coming out, and Nick is like, I'm still putting up 405, and Lowe's like, oh, putting up 405. You're like, yeah, I don't do that much weight, but I like to just kind of bust out 225 30 times. And I'm like, okay, here we go. We're rolling now, man. We are rolling now. This is happening. And I think by the end of it, and then of course I tried to diffuse it a little bit. I'm like, well, I think start of the match standing up. Nick's got that length, and I'm like, but I don't know. You get on the ground, and even down. If you're either bottom top, I think Lowe, and it felt like each of you were respectful of the others.
Exactly. The
others' abilities.
But letting you know, money. My senior year, I never got taken down one time.
Never got taken down.
My senior year, you can go look it up. No one take your boy down.
It doesn't surprise me.
Your boy.
I mean, nobody's got the base you had. You're just a walking, you're a walking garage freezer. That's how wide you are. One of those top-loading freezers.
What are you suggesting? What do you think? You know what? I think you should talk to Nick. You know what? I'm in for it. And we donate to charity.
Here's what we'll do. And I believe the if is going to be when the Chargers go to Fresno for that training camp practice. We're going to be at Fresno State.
Oh.
You're going to reach out to the wrestling coach.
Oh.
and you're going to get those mats rolled out, get that headgear out there, and look, I'll be happy to be the warm up. I'll take on the state. Let's go middle school girls champ. I'm gonna take her on to warm the crowd up. I'm gonna get after her. I'm not gonna cut you any slack now, lady. All right, you might be in 8th grade and strong, but I'm gonna come out there. All right, I'm gonna come out there ready. And then we'll get you and Nick, man. And then we'll get you and Nick out there on the mats. Little controlled situation.
Yes. 2-minute rounds. Well, we'll go 1-minute round. 1, 2, 2. Yeah. So something we can both do it. But I would donate to charity. Nick could do a charity. I think you talk to Nick about it and say we'll donate to charity, and we'll. I'm in. I'm gonna start training. I just got finished running 3 miles. Money.
There we go.
I said, hey, you got me fired up. Seeing you look. No, Money. Honestly, all jokes aside. Look amazing. You take great care of your body. No, you do.
A small person. And you know what charity we're going to donate to? Exactly what charity we're going to donate to.
All right, tell me.
The Lorenzo Neal, Nick Hardwick Medical Fund. And one of you ends up with a shoulder like mine, and the other one blows out a freaking hamstring. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, pretty much.
The charity that we're going to donate to. There we go. All right. We appreciate everybody. Exciting day. Next week, we'll preview the game against the Chiefs. 53-man is made. Certainly looking forward to it, man. Very excited about it, Lo. All these guys, a lot of their dreams, coming to fruition. Others still chasing it, and I hope it all works out for those that didn't get the call that they wanted. But be sure to rate, review, leave your comments, and we'll. I'm trying to see what's Lindsay trying to MC. Money, you can do the extra. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, I will happily MC. After I knock out that 8th grade girl.
Absolutely. But Money, I don't know. You might be pretty tired. You might be pretty tired after you beat the 8th grade girl. I don't know if you're going to be able to MC your
beat her.
Okay.
I'm just going to be like this, trying to get that shoulder up so I don't get that. That's all I care about. I can't hear the slam on the mat. All right, everybody. We appreciate y'all. We'll be back again for Bleav in Chargers next week.
All right, Money. See you in Brazil.